And that leads us right to the aforementioned Gaethje and Chandler fight. So this fight ended up becoming the leadoff because Trevor Whitman was a busy man last night. He had 3 fights. So originally it was going to be 3 fights back to back to back. So they made this the leadoff. Michael Chandler, I think at one point was thinking it's because they wanted to start off the pay-per-view strong. Other reporters seem to have thought the same thing. That wasn't the case. It was just a logistical thing. But it did end up being what a hell of a way to start the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
After that fight happened, I would imagine you had the same thought. I'm sure a bunch of people had the same thought of how the hell is anything going to follow this fight up on this card at all? I was initially thinking maybe Usman and Covington somehow will get close to it. The fight we just discussed did a pretty good job. Usman and Covington did do a pretty good job, but no, this was clearly the best fight of the night. That Michael Chandler, the politician that he is, kept harping on the fact of this is the people's main event. This is the people's main event. We're not a 5-rounder, but this is what the people are going to want to see. Yeah, he ended up being right. This was, I think, the surprise of many. The fact
I put this up,
but yeah.
Sorry, but I put this up to fight of the year contender. I mean,
for sure.
We're talking about fight of the night. No, dude, this has the potential to be fight of the year. I think it was what a war, man, and it was interesting that it was very interesting to me that they put them at the beginning of the card. It actually makes sense when you think about it, though, because if you're trying to get people to buy in, you start off with a banger like this, and you're not going to have a choice. You're going to have to buy that pay-per-view. You're going to have to show up to Madison Square Garden on time to see this fight and the rest of the card.
Yeah, I think that also, kind of works out that way. But yeah, I mean, this was set at 1.5. The over was a slight favorite, but it was, again, pretty slight. I think it was like -120 for the over and even money for the under, something like that. I was thinking it would go over, but I was not thinking this is going to be a decision. And the fact that it was a decision is remarkable on the side of both men, because both men multiple times in this fight look like, oh, he's about to pass up.
Yeah.
He's almost done. Both men, multiple times, I'm looking at them. Oh, Chandler's about to finish Gaethje. This fight's done. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, Gaethje's for sure about to finish Chandler. Oh, wait, no. Chandler's still alive. I don't know what the hell what was in the pre-workout before the fight, what the hell they took. I don't know how the hell those men were standing after. Dana said they sent both men to the hospital, but it was more of a precaution. Like, there wasn't any noticeable injury or anything. It was just to make sure after that war.
What noticeable? Chandler was wrecked. Chandler's face was a freaking
It was tagged up for sure. And it doesn't help that he was like walking into the punches in the end like a madman. Because we've seen that happen a couple of times where they just put their hands down, they start walking, and they're like yelling, and they go to this full psycho mode. But he did almost get knocked out, which would have been hilarious. That he's like, oh, he's doing like the whole zombie mode thing. But then Gaethje tagged him, and then he actually took a couple steps back.
Yeah,
it did ring his bell pretty good. But dude, that first round for a second, I was like, dude, Chandler might be right. He might actually get the round 1 finish that he said during the pre-fight press conferences.
Yeah, and I thought he was very, very close, man. One of the buddies we were watching with kept saying like, no, Gaethje, this is how Gaethje is. He always gets tagged up. He always gets tagged up. Don't worry about it. And I'm like,
he does.
I'm like, it's true, but I mean, man, way to make me nervous, dude.
Yeah, and I mean this is the reason why Gaethje is as big of a crowd favorite as he is because he's willing to go out there and do what he did, and he's willing to lose. Does he want to? Obviously not, but he's willing to lose for the sake of a performance. And it's been discussed multiple times, especially when, leading up to the Khabib fight. I had picked Gaethje as like the possible person to end up that O streak for Khabib because of his wrestling background. I figured, this guy might be the one who's able to stuff Khabib and keep it on his feet. Obviously didn't happen. But so it's been discussed where this guy has the wrestling background. He's capable of the ground game. They discussed it again during this fight because both men have a wrestling background in college. They showed Gaethje retired. They retired him at his college or something, whatever. In the Hall of Fame, whatever it was. And the reason I mention all that is there was a couple of times in this fight where Chandler did shoot. Gaethje successfully defended it. And Gaethje very easily could have worked a submission of some sorts. He could have worked his way around Chandler's back and maybe put a rear naked choke or something. but it was and it wasn't a matter of, oh, he's dumb. He's not recognizing it. He for sure knew he could do it.
Oh yeah.
But this man is a man of the people. He's like, I'm not going for a submission. And he just stood back up. So it's not, because I think they were mentioning it during the broadcast, or I think I saw someone mentioning it, like, oh, he's not doing it because of, oh, I wish I could remember who was saying it, but they were saying he doesn't have it in him anymore. Like he's used his wrestling so infrequently since he's joined MMA that it's not even like an instinct anymore for him to like shoot when he's hurt. I strongly disagree with that. I don't think it's that instinct is dead where he doesn't recognize, oh, I'm hurt, let me shoot for the legs. It's, I don't care that I'm hurt. I'm either going to get knocked out or I'm going to knock the guy out. And he mentioned it leading up to this fight too. He's like, I'm either going to get knocked out or he's going to get knocked out. So it's not a matter of, oh, he's incompetent, he doesn't know to do it. It's like, no, man, he wants to put on a show. He says it himself. He's like, I'm a showman, I'm a show off. I want to go out there and do a performance. So whenever these people like ESPN, and that's how you know these people they're not really MMA followers. They just got assigned to it. And it's so frustrating. It's like, dude, the man says it. He clearly says it himself that, no, I'm not going to wrestle. He said it to Chandler. Like, if you shoot, you're a puss. I mean, he's spelling it out for you. That's not what he does. And that's why, what was this, his 9th UFC fight, 9 UFC fights and 10 bonuses? There's a reason, man. This is why people love him, because he puts on a hell of a show.
No, I 100% agree, man. I mean, I didn't know that he had said all that to Chandler, so it's kind of funny that Chandler shot anyways. But you're right, dude. He didn't even attempt it. There was no attempt on Gaethje's part, which is, you know, to his credit, man. Coming off of the Khabib loss, you would think you would incorporate something like that. But, you know,
absolutely not.
Dude, that's awesome to hear, man. I mean, again, as fans of the sport, I like to know that a fighter is not full of shit. Like, if they're gonna say this is what I'm doing, that's what they're gonna end up doing. You know, like aside from obviously like people like Usman, Covington, and Connor, like when they hype stuff up, that's a different thing. But you know, they tell you I'm gonna come take your head. They come and take your head. It's not some mind game nonsense. Well, unless you're Costa, and then you play all sorts of games.
For Chandler, so this was his 3rd UFC fight. He beats Dan Hooker. He loses to Charles Oliveira, and now he's lost to Justin Gaethje. I would argue each fight progressively greater in difficulty. You could maybe make it a debate between the Gaethje and Oliveira one, but let's say for the sake of that purpose that each fight got a little bit more difficult in terms of the talent level he was coming up against. So he's 1-2 in the UFC. But again, if you're going to lose to 2 people, with first one of them being the incumbent champion and the other being a former interim champion, I would say that's not a bad 2 losses to have. And again, super competitive in both those losses. He had a 10-8 in that first round against Charles Oliveira looked like this guy was about to stomp him through the ground, and he was the one that was going to be defending in December. Somehow Charles comes back and wins that fight. And then again, we mentioned multiple instances against Gaethje where it looks like he's going to take his head off, and Gaethje's just somehow powers through and gets the win himself. I'm very fascinated to see what do they do with him now, because again, 2 losses versus 1 win, but could have easily been 3-0. Easily could have been 3-0.
I'm actually curious about something, because I didn't realize that it was that this was Chandler's 3rd fight in the UFC. I mean, look at his career, man. Like, you would have thought they'd pull him out of Bellator way sooner than they did. I don't know if that's necessarily like, if it's necessarily justified to have him just go immediately for a title shot after beating Hooker, but because we were even talking about that matchup was a little like really Oliveira and Chandler for the belt. It was weird.
It was a weird situation. I did definitely disagree, but it was a weird situation because Dustin took the money fight, which if you're fighting Connor, anyone should make, like, that's the correct decision.
Yeah, Khabib kind of threw that for a loop by dropping.
Yeah, and then the Gaethje was in a weird situation because he had lost to Khabib. So it's like, well, do we give this guy a title shot when he just lost for the title? And then at that point, Oliveira was on an 8-fight win streak, 7-fight win streak at that point. So I did agree with Oliveira being pointed, but I did disagree with Chandler being the other one. But he almost ended up proving that he should have been there, very close, and then he got knocked out. You know, what I was thinking during this fight with Gaethje was do credit to him because Michael's been knocked out a couple of times. So you wonder, is that chin going to be susceptible when you're fighting someone like Gaethje?
Yeah, it's all those
he ate
memes,
absolute
man.
bombs, and that noggin held up like an absolute champion. Because if
Oh
you get
yeah,
knocked out,
oh, absolutely.
you tell me a man fights Charles Oliveira and a man fights Justin Gaethje. He gets knocked out by one of them. Everyone's gonna guess that Justin Gaethje is the man that knocked him out. But the fact that it was Charles Oliveira that knocked him out, the submission specialist, is remarkable. So it just goes to show you in general, like anyone can knock you out. Doesn't really matter. It just crazy stuff happens. But I'm fascinated to see now. Gaethje leading up to this fight said, if I don't get a title shot after this win, I'm gonna riot. They asked Dana, as they always do after the fights, oh, is Gaethje gonna be next? He said it makes sense. And this would be the winner. He fights the winner of next month's pay-per-view, Oliveira and Poirier. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't want to spend too much time discussing that, but I'm not completely upset because it'll be a fun fight regardless of who he fights. So that's what's looking like is next for Gaethje. Chandler, again, curious to see what they do with him.